Okay, hello everyone. I'm glad to see you. So, uh, what we have today on a plan? Um, we will check your homework and go further to the Java. Mainly, we will cover methods more deeply, their return type. We'll play with static context, and we'll cover some more stuff. Uh, so, what was the homework? Okay, something else? Good. I'm just thinking there was something from the previous lecture. Okay, we will check in Slack what I have sent. Yeah, there was one task and some stuff to read and get a bit familiar with variables of the class and methods. By the way, have you tried to pass once again the quiz? But work.
You said you closed the submitting.
I closed the submitting, but not the questions. Okay. So please review your answers and maybe in some day we will repeat it. So be prepared. Okay, and who has completed the homework? Okay, good. So let's try to do it quickly then. So I am creating new class in specific package, and I will give some name, homework 7. Okay, let's just copy paste our requirements, what we need to do. So the first one was to create a class. So let's create it. Okay, we did this successfully and no errors. So after that, we have requirement that users should be able to define the radius of the circle, and it should be of type double. So we need a member variable of class circle of type double. So let's define it and call it the radius. Okay, so after that, that class should has the method which will actually return the radius variable. So okay, let's do this. Don't forget that methods are in camel style. Method should specify the return type. In our case, it will be the same as the variable which we are going to return, so it will be double. And here we should specify what we are going to return. For this we are using the return statement. Okay, that's it. And there was requirements to create a method which will return the area of the circle based on its radius. So it's something from school, math lessons. Again, the result of this method will be decimal value, and because we are operating with the radius, which is double, we will also use double. Okay, defining new method, get area. And here we are specifying the return statement. Who can remind me the formula for the calculating area of the circle?
B and 2 radius.
Okay, let's start from the simple one. We are defining the radius, and we are multiplying it 2 times, and we need to multiply it with constant p. We haven't covered it yet, but I hope you have Googled and found some useful information. Also, you could write it just 3.14. We can use constant. Who have found the constant? Okay, good. We will cover these constants today, hopefully. So I will just check that the formula is accurate.
There is radius multiplied by radius square.
Okay. Yeah, so good. Okay, it should work. So let's check how we can check this. What we should do.
Make a new start.
Yeah, we are initializing the our object circle using the keyword new. So and assigning it to some variable. Don't forget that our variable should be meaningful, and axb it's not good enough, so give something what can other read and understand what it means. Okay, so what will be if I will just ask get through area? Will it print something good? Okay, what I will get? Which one? Error or zero? So
Zero.
yeah, you are right. So why we get zero? Because our radius isn't defined, but as we have discussed in previous lectures, that default value for primitives are zero. So, and in this case we kind of have zero here. So we need to define some radius for that value. Yeah.
Isn't it user who should define radius size, like with scanner?
I think you are familiar enough with scanner, so in this case it's enough just to practice with class how it's what you need. So
there was some questions with scanner, because first when I tried to do it, this, I got 3 radiuses.
what you got?
Well, I made void ask for radius,
Okay.
and then get area with this radius that I got, and he asked me a few times because it asked me one time, then we have in return radius and radius and map p, so we have two radiuses. So he asked twice.
Mm.
But why did you do it as a method?
How to get radius
Last
up.
time we wrote just in the code. Yeah.
But isn't it better to write one time in class circle? Just
It's not responsibility of class circle to ask user for some information. In good way in programming, we should split responsibilities. So it shouldn't be that car, for example, can ask for salary and ask for, I don't know, new driver. So it should be split a bit. And in this case, the same. So better move out the logic for asking user for some data outside of this class.
Okay.
While it's small classes, it's okay kind of put, but it's bad practice. So you should think in advance what you suppose that this class will do. So if it's circle, should it communicate with user? So our user should communicate with the circle. It's a bit out of this topic.
But how could I get the radius if I
Uh,
first I have to ask user
You
and
sh-
circle should have radius.
you
How could I get
you could do this in a main method. And I understand your idea. You probably try to reuse the request input from the user with some method, yeah, wrapping. Yeah. We can wrap it in a method, but it shouldn't be part of the circle. So
May I ask, like, you wrote double and return, we have not covered. I understand the logic, but is there more to explain about? Why double, not void? What is return and how does it work?
we have briefly covered the return statement. We haven't. Good. Only the void. I will open the presentation. Maybe it will be in today's presentation. Let's open it first. Previous one. We have briefly discussed the possibility to return something, but because the task was quite simple, it would be good if you dig. So we will cover return statement today. We will cover methods in overall, the arguments and return statement. Okay, and now we should get some results. So what is the idea? In order to make it clear for everyone. We created new object of type circle, and for that object we have defined the variable radius equal to 2. And after that we executed method of this instance. So we went to this method and did the following. We took the radius variable of this object and multiplied it once again with radius and multiplied it with p constant. And after that was completed, we have returned the result and printed out. Okay, do you need the code? Yes, you need. Keep in mind that I have put some package here. We'll hopefully cover it. So if you will try to copy paste it, you will need to have the class with the same name as public class, and either remove this one, either put it in the same package. Okay, I will create new channel for today's session. So Lecture8. Okay, I will share in our channel the presentation which I have prepared for today's lesson. Okay, agenda is to cover a bit more deeply methods and go over the variable scope, make it clear a bit for you where the variable scope starts, where it ends, and what you should keep in mind while defining a variable. After that, we will go to constructors, which helps to us define the initialize new objects. After that, we will cover static and final variables, which helps to us realize our needs in programming. And we will go once again into object allocation, memory allocation for the object, because we have started new topic, objects and classes, and it's important to understand where they're located in memory. And after that, we will try to cover packaging. So, yeah. So, methods. It's kinda, they simplify our lives. They allow to us reuse some code of block and execute it multiple times. So, and it can process the data which are available in objects where the method is defined. We can pass some data to this method and do operation on it. So like we calculate sum. So what we see there, we have access modifier, public, for now we skip it, which has returns type long, method name in camel, case style, and we have two arguments. They both are of the same type, long and long, and there is the name of arguments by which we can access the data, pass it to them. So yeah, just one more time about method structure, how it looks. So first one goes modifier, it's optional. If it's skipped, it's default package visibility. After that, return type, method name, and parameter list. Parameter list also is optional and it's not limited, but it's, if you have too many arguments, then there is something wrong with your method. You should rethink it. So keep in mind it. And after that, we have method body, which are inside of parentheses. So methods. It's good practice in Java to access the class variable members through the methods. Don't access them directly. For these purposes, I used getters and setters. It's part of encapsulation topic, which will be later. For now, we will just get a bit more familiar and we'll try to use them. we already have used one, so you may notice that getRadius is getter for variable radius. In real application, it would be something like that. So and just briefly, we have few access modifiers which we should know. It's private, public, and default. So private prohibit access of class member directly outside of the class. I can access the variable inside of class, but outside I can't access it. You may notice that I have some mistake here, that visibility is wrong. And in order to modify and access it, we create getters and setters. So getters provide data, but setters set the data. Setters don't have any return type, they only set, so return type is void. So if I would write this class, I would write it like this. So I would hide from the outside of this class variable radius and provide access through getter and setters. So try to in future write with getters and setters. It will make some habit for you. What we need to know about setters. So here we specify the argument which we actually receive and set it to the class variable which we want to update. Actually, that's it. Return statement. We use it in order to return the result of the method to the place where it was called from. So it is quite obvious, at least for me. So you may notice. So yeah, back to getter and setter, and here I would update direct access of variable to setter methods. Okay, so yes.
Can we return only one value, or we can multiple values?
Sorry?
We can return only one variable in the method, or we can return several.
Program will after it reaches the first return statement, it return the context. So, but we can, if you want to return, for example, variable a and b inside of method, you can only return one, but there is workaround. You can put it in some structure, in some another object which will hold a and b variables. So usually it's done in such way. So regarding the return statements, we can have multiple return statements, but we will return only one, as was mentioned. We can have something like that. Okay, I missed parentheses. So we may have some condition based on which we will decide what we return. So it's same logical flow. Okay. Yep. Method arguments. So for now we will use only strict amount of arguments predefined. So how much arguments we have defined. So arguments we will use. So let's create a new class, bicycle, which will have, for example, method direction. And it will not return nothing, but it will inform users about actions, what it do. So we are initializing new bicycle. Yep. And we are going to say that drive 5 kilometers to the north, for example. We want to say to him some direction. And there we need to keep in mind another thing, that order in which we specify the arguments is important. So if we have defined the word site at first place, then it should be here also, first one, argument. And if we will define the speed in second argument, so we also expect here it to be the second one. Oops, I specified the object instead of primitive. We haven't covered them yet. So, saying to bicycle, go to north at 5 kilometers per hour, for example. I expect that side will be north and speed will be 5. So, yeah, that's it. What else can mislead you? For example, if we will have different variable name, define it here. Let's create special variable for the north. Call it also side. And speed we also will make as a separate variable. Let's just make sure that it works in the same way. You should keep in mind that that variable isn't accessed through here, so we just accessing what is passed to us here. So I can rename that one to speed in kilometers, for example. And you may see that I'm not able to access the variable which is passed here because it's out of my scope. This we will cover in variable scope, but just to inform you that what is inside method, what is outside method is not accessible in this method. So only class variables and what we have passed to the method. Okay. Another thing. This keyword. It is a good practice to differ class member variables, which is defined here in class. From that which we are using in our methods. So you may notice that we have variable speed inside of method, which we have passed through argument, and we may have the same variable inside of object. In order to differ them, Java has such a keyword as this. I will duplicate this. Oops, not delete, but duplicate. And let's say this bicycle speed. And here I will refer to exactly speed of this object. In order to make it more explicit, I will change to 10. So kind of default speed of bicycle is 10, what is defined in that class, and the speed what we have passed is different. So let's see. So yeah, that's it. So it's good practice to refer to class member variables by this keyword in order to distinguish and exclude any misleading further. Okay. Good. Any questions? Let's see what I need to say more. I think it's all what we need to know for now, and we can play around a bit. Okay, I have here only 10 signatures, but in chat I see 17 members. Don't forget to leave your signature. Okay, so what we have to do, we need to create a method which has two arguments, one of type boolean and another double, and this method should return of type string, which will concatenate the two arguments. Another one method would be it would need to receive array of integers and return sum of that array. We have did something, but it wasn't method. It was something different. It wasn't method. It was just raw code. And another task is to create a class car which has a few fields, and you need to practice to write setters and getters. Yep. Any questions? Good.
Но в этом случае получается, что это, простите, правильно, книжка фотоетическая становится прыгать.
Больше перед ним ничего, находиться не может. Вот это вот пакетинг, есть вот это все, что такое. Больше. Сюрпризы будут, но не так. Possible, please raise your hand who has has no understanding what we should do right now and how to accomplish this. Okay. Who know how we can, from you who raised the hand, how we can create the new class? What we need for that? Who can? So.
Create a new class?
Yes.
Yes,
Define a new class. So we can create a new okay. So all of you should be able to create just a new class, yeah, with public void static main method. It's clear for everyone. Okay, so let's do that. Let's create this. It's only for them who has any problems, just to make it clear. Has everyone created that class? Okay, with name repeating. Okay, let's do this.
Question. Why you have upside package for Messenger and Visual?
Sorry? Package?
Yes, package and Visual.
I created it during creating the new project. It's not mandatory, but as I have told initially, it's almost required to have package name
For any
project.
project.
Yes, for big projects.
But if we, when we create a class, it is not the project.
Class is a class, but one project can consist of multiple classes.
Okay. How we can create a project package?
New package. It's not mandatory right now, but you may create it. Okay, so everyone right now have a class repeating, so which is public and has inside method public static void. So that method is required for Java to start our application. From here begins all logic. So what we will write here, that will be executed first. So as we have discussed on previous lesson, we may need to store some data, and one of the way to store them is classes. Also classes can have some behavior, so it's like in our world. So we have car, it's kind of class, and all cars have same behavior. They can drive, they can wash window, and they can have some states like color, brand, and so on. But specific cars, which is kind of objects, they have exact behavior and exact state. So Mustang has exact brand. They use gasolina, and they have specific car has specific color. So at first we need to define this blueprint from which we will do new objects. For these purposes we have classes. So we already have one class. It's public, but we will use it only to allow Java to run our application. We can create, we'll skip this for simplicity. Right now we will define the new class. I think who don't know how to declare another class here.
I just tried by hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who can define a new class? Who know how to define? Okay, so let's write class and its name. Class car. Okay, everyone did this. Good. So as we have mentioned, each class may have states like color, speed, and so on. So we can define it here. So let's define color. So color will be of type string. Who know, by the way, how to define it himself?
String, color,
Yeah? Write down it, please. And speed also. Which type it will have? Which type of variable will have speed? Yes. Let's define it. Yes. So far so good? Is it compiled? Can it be compiled? No red signs? Good, so okay, and you should have something similar. Yep. That we have covered on previous lecture, and also we should know how to give some behavior to our car. So how we can define behavior? What is used in Java to specify class behavior? Methods. Yeah. What we need to specify in order to declare a method? What was needed? How was the syntaxes look like? Yeah, let's assume we want to make a behavior drive where we will specify just drive. Yeah, just will write down drive, so it will print out, nothing will return. Okay, we are specifying type, void. What next?
probably name.
Yeah, okay. Drive. And actually that's all. And need to specify the body of the method using parentheses. Okay, and here we may put some activities which we want to be executed when this method is called. In our case, we want to print out just drive. Okay, good. How we can say that I want that my red color would be driven somewhere? What I need to do? I need to create car, yeah? How I can do this? Okay. We declare the variable which will represent our car so that I can refer to that later. So I need to give some identify it. So I will call it my car. It's same as we communicate with each other. So in order to communicate to someone, I call it, I want to refer to you. So in order to refer to some object, I need to know to whom I want to refer, and for these purposes we are using the variable names. Okay, and in order to create actually this object we are using keyword new, which allocate memory. Okay, car, and yeah, we already here have car, but it doesn't have any speed and color defined. Okay, so how I may ask my car to drive? What I need to do? I need to refer to my car. For these purposes I use that variable, my car, and then I refer to some state, behavior, some method. So there is some hint what the IDEA gives to me. I can refer to color of that object, speed, method. There are some built-in methods. We will cover them later. So I want to drive, so I specify that. And what will happen? So Java entered the main method here and starts. It's initialize new object and put it into variable my car, and later I just call the method drive, and I'm going to that method, and here it starts executing. It will print out the drive and exit when it's finished. The method is finished and we exit back to the point where we entered that, and I come back here. So here is nothing happening, so, and I'm also exit from that method, and actually I'm exit from the application. Okay, here it is. So and I want to identify that it is my car. Let's give name to that car. So I want to make sure that it's my car driving, not someone other. So for this purpose I define the name for my car, my super duper car, and yeah, I'm trying to execute it. Yeah, it's still driving. I don't know which one car, so I need to specify. I want to know which one car is driving. For these purposes I am in method specify the name of the car, what is actually driving. So we already have covered this keyword, so let's use it in order to make it clear. So I refer to the variable of this object which is created. So I am inside my car, so I will refer to the variables of my car. So, and let's create another car, some stolen car. Okay, and let's see what will happen. Yeah, I see that finally I drive my car, my super duper car, and also later there is driving stolen car. Who needs some clarification on this part?
I have a question. Which part make it repeat? Why it make one and then next one?
Okay, here
Why it doesn't stop?
I have two cars created. So program goes from top to the bottom. So at first I create one car, I specify the name to that car, I I specify to drive for my car. That is, it was printed this one statement. After that, I have created new car and specified again name for that. And again told drive.
And if you inside of this frames write 100 cars, show 100 cars. Okay? Yeah? Different.
And yeah, it will be accurately to your code. Will do what you have written. So, and also I can specify to drive exactly my car multiple times. And I can, let's check. So yeah, I was driving many times, and I can specify to drive that car later also.
Okay, you just go to the point.
Okay. So, uh, who knows how to create a method with two arguments and which will return string, which will concatenate into string the two passed variables, arguments, sorry. Only one person. 2, 3. Okay. Let's do it simple. Let's pass two strings as arguments and return the concatenation of these two strings.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
If we need to create only a method, not any variables, do we still need to make a class on top? And what is the name then? If it's only the method in the class?
Up to you. You can make it in any one class.
It doesn't matter.
Yes. So we can do it in a car class.
Yeah, understand. For me, just class, when you explain, class needs some variables, and if we do it only with the method, then I don't understand where do we have the class. Like the class.
Method.
Like there's a class with only methods inside.
Yes. You create a new class and put inside that method.
Yeah.
So.
Can you not make the class just?
Can we just
Can we
make
just
the
make
method? What is the class?
Method should be inside class.
A different class, or can it be in the public class?
It could be in public class, but you will need to create the instance of that class. It's
Now
also possible.
the instance is also like not real when we make it like if there's only a method, we make a new instance of the class and it's like don't need it really. Just to call the method, but it doesn't give like any variables, any information about it. Because we give out
For
the
that purposes,
arguments.
I use it static methods, but it also could be that there is class only with methods. It's okay. There is no, it could be. So, let's create here some method which will return string, for example. Yeah, we'll return string and we'll be named drive on a specific light. And here we may specify a speed, for example.
There is boolean and double boolean.
I'm just doing a bit different. You have different tasks, so. And there will be a light. String light. What he wants from me. Yeah, and I need to return something. Return. I will do it a bit different. I'm specifying that I'm driving on some light and with speed, for example, so concatenation. Do you know what is concatenation? Everyone know? Okay, concatenation is mean when we combine two parts. So in our case, we are going to concatenate two arguments. In my case, it is speed of type integer and light of type string. I did a bit more than it was required. I concatenated it with some predefined text driving on was concatenated with a variable light of type string. Again, it was concatenated with predefined string, and that part was concatenated with a argument speed of type integer. Concatenation is done by using the plus symbol. We have covered it. Is it, yeah?
What is the difference between when we make return or we make void and then like system out print?
Not always you need to print out it. You may need to pass that information to, I don't know, another application. So you will not do this through the console. It's only for you, easier way to understand what happens. And in real application, we don't have such output, and we need to debug.
And why then system out print is void when it's returning something? It's returning to the console all the thing.
But it doesn't return nothing from the method where it was executed. It prints. Assume that terminal is another object. So your program is running and in some object, and later when we met this system out println, what actually happens? That part says to that object, print out that information. But it will not return nothing from that method.
Okay, understood.
Okay, so now who is able to print out to the console that information? Who knows how to do this? Get the
Can't return integer in string if you ask for to return string. Why doesn't call for error? I mean, speed is integer, right?
but it will be as a text.
Automatically translates to string.
Integers are automatically and doubles are not.
Yeah.
For me, it says error.
Doubles can translate to.
You had some specific case.
I had to use the string to have
Only
it printed
Boolean,
out.
I think, doesn't go to string. Double goes.
So I send a link about concatenation and I hope you would read it. So shortly, the first part should be string in order to concatenate. Otherwise, it's assume you're summing, you do plus, like. So who succeeds to execute that method on object and print the returned value to the console? Okay. So what I actually mean. I can access newly created method through the object which I have. So, and here I can specify the speed and the color on which I want to drive. So, what will happen right now? What will be printed out? what will be printed out into console.
Nothing. There's no
Oh.
print.
Yeah, they will be printed only operation which is mentioned inside drive method, and it's executed twice. So actually it will be drive super duper car and drive stolen. If I want to print out the output of this method, I need to specify what I really want. So again, I can put the return statement of this method into variable in order to operate with that later. Kinda send it to another application or print it out. So let's do this. Define a new variable, because this method returns the type string. The variable also should be of type string. And let's name it message. Okay, so what will be printed now? This question will be in quiz.
First, my super duper car, then driving on red light with speed 56, and then stolen car.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so something similar you should have with type on first task. Who still doesn't understand what she should do there? Okay, raise your hand who has understand. By the way, any other? Do you have questions on following tasks?
I don't understand has setters and getter for each field, but I understand what is setter and getter, but what should I do?
You should create them for each field. So get brand, set brand.
No, at our method.
Yes, setter and getter are methods. Does anyone need any assistance? Okay.
I understood all the previous stuff.
First one. Okay, so we need to create another method. Call it do some stuff, which has return type string, and will be a kind of ну, конечно, ну, whatever. Yeah. Variegaarna konfliktningsschaffen diskuteras валидировалась firma variables, properties и methods transfer expression тогда относится каведа. Any questions?
Still thinking. So here are defined those variables, right?
Object fields.
Object fields. Okay. So and then afterwards I need to define the method.
Yes.
Yes.
It starts from the return type. We're
So
going to
then
return.
we do this return. So
No, let's start from a method definition. So
okay.
start from return type. In our case, it's string.
Okay. So let me just. Okay.
After that goes method name.
It's any word.
Some stuff. Yeah. Like convenient. Method name should start from small letter and environment name also. Okay. We need to define the parameters. Simple.
Yeah.
And after
Like
that
this
we
and
which will define the body of the method. Currently rates.
some other values.
And
Okay. So then here you get that.
you want no, we don't want to print out, we want to return it. So
Then we will just ignore it.
yeah, and we need to do the equations also. String is continue. Yep. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. By the way, there are a few who think they completed wrongly homework and want to some comment from me. Can send it to me. I will check, and later, if it will be too much homework, I will just summarize some most often cases and will try to explain what you did wrong or maybe not so good. So you can just send it to me in Slack. So raise your hand who has completed the first one task. Okay. Yes.
Конечно, нет. Да?
Ну вот если посмотреть, у нас тут разные.
А тут нет. Да.
Это... Не, мы создаем объект типа users. А вот у нас тут в данном случае есть класс и аргумент. То бишь user у нас где-то в другом паке, в другом классе.
А, то есть это должен быть класс.
Ну, мы в данном
Я
случае...
смысл просто у нас, это я просто спросила. Когда это вот это было?
Еще раз, что у нас назад? Поясни.
Вот, сейчас. Вот,
Что мы делаем? Первый класс слова мы define переменную. Мы ее создаем. Мы
Да.
говорим, что мы хотим хранить вот клаве.
Вот эти вот данные.
В клаве хранить переменную типа, вот, которая является типом split. И мы должны Java классифицировать здесь. Это может быть image, созданный user. Переменная должна знать, что за тип она будет хранить в себе. Примерно, ну, может быть, то же самое будет.
Да, то же самое. А, вот этот класс.
Нет, это как? Это не user класс. Можем перейти назад. Мы найдем, какой данный обращается. Мы зажимаем Ctrl и нажимаем user. Вот, мы переходим сюда. Вот тут это нашел этот класс.
Другой.
Да, ну, класс А. Переходим назад. Соответственно, указываем класс, который мы хотим создать.
Вот это.
Объект, из которого класс хотим создать, да?
Вот это.
Да. Вот, все сошлось.
Ну, это неправильно. Ну, в смысле, не...
Ну, who else has any problems with first one task? Raise your hand. Okay. Negative. Let's declare
Está aprovado o calendário vai falso. Como está
Okay, so let's review one of the example how you try to accomplish first task. So you have created a class, a public class, which is required for Java in order to start application. Just remember, it's look for the public class, and inside it looks for the public method main. So here we have declared the variable of type phone and did the initialization. So let's look. One of the way how to check which on which class we are trying to initialize object is to use Ctrl and press left click on mouse on this object, and it will switch us to the class which we have created. There could be situation that we, for example, have we are trying to create objects from different class, not that we have here, but from different ones. So keep in mind on which object, on which class you are trying to create objects. So it's, for example, it doesn't mean that you will create exactly instance of that one. It says that you will create instance of car, which is located totally in different class. Keep in mind that what you create. So okay, here we have created the object of class phone, and we have method which is introduce phone. Like, looks good, yeah, good example. But what for we need the phone fields? So like right now it could make a bit complicated to understand which brand we are trying to use. So you don't need to have exactly the same fields in class which you are trying to pass to your method. So it's redundant, so you can just remove them. So what else we should take into account? Concatenation of not string types into string. It was mentioned in some of article. So if, for example, our argument is of type double, and we will try to concatenate, in your imagination, concatenate using the plus symbol, Java will recognize it as math operation. So it will think it is sum of version plus something. So it will be actually of type double. So it will not be a string. So in order to concatenate boolean, integer, and something else to string, Java should understand that it should be string. So one of the way to do this is to define string. It could be empty string, there could be some content, and only then when we will try to do concatenation or with some primitive data type like double, it will understand that first argument is of type string, and then using operator plus it will add to string and convert version to string, and it will become also string, the result. So yeah, keep in mind on which first argument you are applying plus symbol. So it's logical, if we do plus on integer, some number, we will get math operation. Yep. So in that case you need to have something like that. And my awesome version. And yeah, don't forget about order of arguments. So first one is boolean, and next one goes double, as is declared in our method. Yeah, and you can switch to this method using control. So we could just put nothing here. Yep, that's it. Need to put this into quiz probably. Yep, any questions on first one task?
I still do not understand why our goal was to write that this is true.
Our goal was to understand how to concatenate different types to string and get a bit familiar with methods. So actually there was a good example. So introduce new font. So kinda, is it awesome font? What version it will be? Should I try to explain it a bit differently? Okay, let's go to the next task.
Can I ask you about what I do? What is the difference? Because the task is very similar. Okay, I just do it.
Okay, so our topic was arguments of method.
Yeah.
So it works fine, yes, but we should try to practice with arguments how to apply it.
Okay, exactly this way.
It was one example. So yeah. Right now you may try to move out the field of class argument with user and just pass them directly to this object. Okay, who has succeeded with second one? Raise your hands. Good. Do you need any assistance? Any explanation? So, I will give some hint. So we will create a new class, task 2. We will create some class which will handle array operation. Let's call it like that. Array worker. So, and it will have following methods. So it will return sum of all values of array. It will be int, yeah, right? And let's call it sum values. Okay. It's expect from us to return some values, so let's return it. For now it will be 0, just mock value. We need to pass inside array of integers. So what I should write in arguments? Okay, go on.
And the name.
Of past argument, yeah, right. And after that we may put inside functionality which we already did previously on previous lesson. So there we should specify what type this method will receive. In our case it will be array of integers, and the name will be processed array. And here we should do some logic. Yep. Let's try it. Okay, so let's take a look at second task. Who still needs some assistance? Have everyone completed the second task? Okay. Do you need time? Okay, sure. So, go on. Let's have another 3 minutes and we will take a look. Okay, so let's look how it could be done. So here we have created new object of class array worker, which will process operation on our array. So here we have defined the array which we are going to sum in our case. We have initialized it with size 5 and have defined few of values to 1. And now we have passed to our array worker to method some values array which we want to process. So when program will come to this place, we will switch to this method and here we'll start our operation. So right now we don't have nothing. It will be 0 because here we every time return 0. We don't do any process operation. We need to implement it. For these purposes I just set reminder to do. So let's print it out every time. So we do concatenation of some string. We start with some user information. Sum of array is, and we specify exact sum. If we will run it right now, we will get 0. So, and now we need to do there something. So how we did it previously. What is the logic? We defined the variable where we will store the sum of each value, where we will add new value of each array element. So let's call it sum. Initial value will be 0. And we going to start iteration over our array. For these purposes, I will use enhanced for loop because I don't need to have index. I need only get the value and sum it. So I define the element type which I will each time get from this array. In our case it's integer, and let's call it value, and specify array on which we are going to iterate each time. Don't write it down, just focus on the board. So we have specified that array. So here we will iterate on each value of that. So, and now we need to sum value to our previous sum. So okay, actually we are done, but we have some error. So take a look at hint with which we get in left side with red marker. So sometimes they're quite useful, sometimes not. It says that this method must return a result of type int. So yeah, actually we don't return nothing. So, and return statements should be the last one in our method, because if we will try to return it somewhere before, it will say again something bad, like unreachable code, because when application will work, it will, when it will reach return statement, it will terminate execution of current method and go back. So yeah, return statement should be the last one in our case. Okay, so here it is, the result. We also could define array hour a bit faster, as you know. Oops, my keyboard hangs on. So yeah, here it is. I will send it to you in order to simplify your work. You can check it later. And later you can try to update your previous examples with something similar, where you can put your often used method to some helper class which works on array. Okay. So, task 3. So the idea of this task was just to practice with writing methods and using arguments and return statement to make it clear for you. So you had to create a getter method and setter method for each field which you have in your class car. So there is one example what I have did. So I have defined a class car2 because car1 already was in my package and it's conflicted. I can't have like same variable, same method in one visibility scope. So it should be something like that. The main ideas what you should keep in mind: try to use this keyword if you operate with variable of current object, because sometimes you can get something like that when you are assigning brand to brand. So what will happen here? Something strange. Java will not understand you that you are trying to assign to your class member new value. So yeah, for these purposes you should specify keyword this. Also, it could be that you will try to assign to past argument value of your object variable. So keep in mind what you are trying to assign. Okay. And later we can just play around with our car. Oops. So we can set some value to our car. Set brand Ferrari, and previously we did it through variables directly, so it's not a good approach. So slowly we will start to use setters and getters. So, and set color. Oh, I haven't created the setter for that one. So let's try to print out the name of our car. we can directly pass our brand to console output, or we can at first create variable and later do some processing and print out only then. So again, the get brand will return to us string, so the variable also should be string. And we can operate with this variable with result of method. So in our case, we just print it into terminal. It's what we can do. And again, I can concatenate it with something. Yeah. So let's practice a bit with just creating methods. I will send this to you and give another 5 minutes. Okay, so I think you have played around. Do you get any questions on that one? Anyone? Yeah. So let's try to cover another one topic, which is called, oops, what is it? Static variable. So sometimes we need to store information, share it between all objects. For example, we as a car factory want to know, not car factory, but for example car only, want to know how many cars already exist in how many car was created. So for these purposes we may use static field, which is accessed through all other objects. Right now, field which is created inside object is belongs only to that one. We can access it through another one. So let's take some example. Let's create new class and call it static example. You just watch, so you will need to repeat it later. So let's assume again we have a class car. No, class car we already have in our package. So let's create robot. So let's call the class robot. Each robot has its own name, and we want to have, I don't know, common information like factory where robot is produced. So for these purposes let's create a factory. Okay, and let's try to create a new robot. Okay, robot 1. And few other robots. So, and define for them name and factory. So name will be the same as variable name for simplicity. That one will be robot 3, that one will be robot 2, and we want to define to them the same factory on which they was produced. So of course we can do something like that and specify for each of them factory where it was produced. Let's call a factory the Lecture8. No one doesn't pay me for this company, but it's good. And as I know, it's local company, so yeah, what we have kind of duplicated information. Factory, it's common in for every instance what we have created. Let's now just make some method which will print out the information about robot. So robot usually have method info. So, and here we will print out just his name and the factory. So, and we will call this method on each robot. So yeah, we see that we have 3 different robots, but they all are on the same factory. Sometimes we don't need to duplicate such information and don't need to allocate memory for such information. We need things to make our program more powerful and to that it consume less resources. So for these purposes in Java we have such word as static. If we mention any class member variable as static, it will be shared between all objects of that class. It still will work like that, but it's not a good approach how to work with static variables. Usually we can directly say that to class. We can specify to class robot factory variable that it's microtick. So what is the difference? Here I don't create any instance of class robot. I just specify class on which I want to work and specify variable. So, and it will be defined and available for everyone. So let's see. The behavior is the same.
Can we rename it after, or just once you say
Static word doesn't prohibit to renaming it. So you can. So you can to, let's assume after some time, after factory was sold, we decided to change the organization to Microsoft.
But if I will write, for example, later robot 3 when factory and something else, then what will be the factory of robot 3? Microchip or something else?
You mean robot 3 access the factory, something like that, yeah?
Yeah.
It will be also reassigned.
Yes.
So the idea is that you can access static context from the instance. So in our case, instance is that one, what we have created. But you can't from static context access instance variable. In our case, while we haven't created robot, we can't access its name. So
Will the factory change in this case for everyone?
if I will try to access check robot 2, it will be changed.
It will be Microsoft.
Yes.
So basically it's one value for the whole class.
Yes.
And it cannot be like
Sorry?
it's not like default value, but it's just one value.
It's shared between instances. It's class variable.
It cannot be overdefined in like one instance for everyone is one and then one is different.
No, it can't. It's shared for every object. So, okay, what we need to know about that static variable. Yeah, actually we have mentioned everything, that we can access it from any context, as from object, as from static context. We can refer to that variable through the class name only. We don't need exact variable. And another one good way to use it is count amount of robot which we have created. I have mentioned it initially, so kinda we want to know how many there are. For these purposes we need, it will be enough with integer type, and let's call it count. Default value will be 0, and it's actually default 0 by default. And so we can do this because we haven't covered one topic of constructor. Yeah, sorry, I was too early. But for example, we can do right now something like that. Cannot make. Yes, I forgot actually to say that it's static. So yeah, that was the idea what I have mentioned, that we can't access instance variable from the static context. Because why it's static context? We are in static method right now. So it's one of the way how we can count amount of created robots. Later we can define it as automatic part of creation of our objects, but for now we will do something like that. We count total amount. So let's see how many. And we can access this variable in same way, just referring to the class. So yeah, you may see that it's specified. Good. Okay, for now that's it's all. I will right now describe your homework in order to make it more easier for you. Yeah, another update. I will be away from Latvia, so we meet on Monday, and on Friday you also will have lecture, but with another teacher. On next Friday, not that. You have updated information in your WhatsApp.
Yeah, I was thinking of it. So lots of homework?
It would be good if you would ask any questions right now, not later, and okay, so you need to create a separate class called factory, which initially should have only 3 fields: name, location, and worker amount. And it should have following methods: hire new worker, where you can specify the profession of the worker which we are going to hire, and this method should increase actual amount of worker by 1 and should print information what was what we did. And also we have method fire worker, which decrease worker amount by 1 and print out relative information. Also firewall, which will it should set worker amount to 0. And bankrupt method. It should call inside method firewall. So idea is to fire all employees and prohibit hiring any further employee. You should think how to handle this.
What is meant by the engineer and plumber in the
Just print out information to, yeah.
what information?
Uh,
The name?
the name should be printed out. So like after I have executed hire new worker, the amount of worker is increased by 1 and printed out some information.
And how
Engineer
many
is
workers?
hired, so
So we give what is the we give every time some string into
yeah,
different strings.
yeah.
Not
You may think to make user input just in one in row code to play around. So yeah. Who want to get any feedback may send this homework to me. Yeah, in Slack.